Welcome. I'm Billy.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth.
We're from Gadfly City, and this is Last Row Tickets, pop culture takes from the weird seats. Today we're going to look back at maybe the most iconic movie of its generation with the slogan, "He was never in time for his classes. Then one day, he wasn't in time at all." Of course, we don't have to go back in time to remember Back to the Future. Elizabeth, what was it like going down memory lane for this one?
Well, yeah, it had been some years since I saw it. Maybe even since I was a teenager. So I rewatched it recently, and my husband's actually obsessed with this movie. So he really prepped me for taking it all in. And I actually, I expected it to be more like it's very commercially entertaining, but I didn't remember that it was actually such a great film, like just such a well-crafted film.
Absolutely. So many critics have compared it to some of the classic American movies ever. And that's kind of a great launching pad because I wanted to quiz you a bit. This movie came out in '85, and so did some other amazing movies like Rocky IV, Rambo 2, and you might be surprised to know which one did best. I'm going to give you all three movies. You tell me which ones from first to last, how well do you think they did? How would you think that Back to the Future, Rambo 2, Rocky 4 stacked in terms of American sales? What would you
At the
say?
box office?
Absolutely. That's where it
I'm gonna
counts, right?
say Rocky won.
What about
Obviously
second?
not, right? Second, Rambo. Well, I
And
mean, I
then
feel like you're asking me this question because it's not what I would expect, so
and you're saying Back to the Future was third? Is
that's
that
what I'm
right?
saying, yeah.
Okay, so let's flip that order. Okay. So the third highest grossing film in 1985 was actually Rocky 4. All right. I guess America was a little more comic crazy than we like to believe, but it made like 125 million. Second was the second Rambo. I can't remember if it's Rambo Part 1, the second edition, or Rambo 2, the first edition. It's got a really long, complicated name. It was like $150 million. And then Back to the Future was actually the highest grossing film of that
Alright.
three in all. It was almost $200 million. So
Damn. Well, see,
sort of
that's what I thought, but then I thought because you were asking me, it was gonna be surprising, so I said opposite.
you should go back in time and change your
My
answer,
gut.
I feel
Yeah,
like, you
damn.
know. They actually did change the lead in this film. It was really interesting going back and
Right.
reading about the history of the production because most of the film was shot before Michael J. Fox got there. A man named Eric Stoltz played Marty McFly, who you might know from The Mask or Seven Brides for Seven Brothers or some kind of wonderful.
Mhm.
Like, how can you imagine this movie being with someone other than Michael J. Fox?
Well, I mean, I can't really imagine it, but I did read that the reason they decided to hire somebody else was because Eric Stoltz was just playing the character too seriously and kind of, like, missing the comedic beats or not weaving them in on his own?
Yeah, I
That
think
yeah.
you can find clips online, YouTube and whatnot. If you look at it, Michael J. Fox is more of like an all-American kid, right? He's pretty short. He looks like your kid's your favorite kid's friend, right? He's got a lot of try hard. Stoltz is like, I feel like he brings that vibe that would have been like Weird Science or a lot of other classic weird sci-fi movies where Michael J. Fox, maybe it's because of his background in uh, Family Ties, right? That he just kind of came in with that reputation as sort of the all-American kid. So he brought more of a Frank Capra sense to it than Weird Science or The Fly or anything
Mm,
else. But that's kind of the next thing about this movie that's weird is that it wasn't supposed to be the DeLorean, right?
right.
It's supposed to be a refrigerator,
It'd
kind
be a
of like
completely different movie.
Hot Tub Time Machine, 1980s. They
Like, I
wanted
wanna
to,
read the screenplay when it was a refrigerator. How would that even work? Like, do they
yeah,
go in the refrigerator?
yeah,
Like, do they just, like, open it and get blasted by it, or
yeah. Was he drinking in there? Was he eating in there?
is it
How does he get back in time? How does the lightning scene work? You know,
right? It would just be completely different. Thank God for the DeLorean, really, because
and thank
so much
God
more
for
exciting.
Thank God for drugs and the government, because that was the main reason why they switched to it. They wanted to
Thank
capitalize
God for
on the
drugs.
notoriety of the DeLorean Machine Company's utter, failure, and they're going out in flames as John
Mhm.
DeLorean was getting brought into a government sting operation for drug dealing. They kind of, they definitely wanted to use all the infamy back then to try and get some attention for the movie. But it wasn't just Eric Stoltz that was changed in this movie. In the next movie, Crispin Glover was swapped out.
Yeah.
And
It's a bummer, man, because he was so good in this movie.
yeah,
Just
that's,
so weird and specific and good. What an
yeah,
actor.
great guy.
What was the story of that, though?
Right. So after the first one was shot, they actually shot the second and third films back to back, and they tried to engage Crispin Glover for the movie, the next two films, but they couldn't come to a contract
Right.
agreement. And what they did was, what they're not allowed to do anymore, is they used clips from the first movie, and then they had an actor use prosthetics to try
Mhm.
and recreate him in the aggregate. And it's
Yeah.
sort of, it's like likeness, right?
Yeah, and it just looks really weird, right?
It does. I think if
Yeah.
anyone, he kind of, if you, one thing I really did on the last rewatch is look at Crispin Glover's face after learning about what happened in the second movie and how he got mad and sued over it. And one, his face does look kind of odd at times, but I think that is just trying to make a 20-year-old or 22-year-old, whatever he was back then, into a 45-year-old, right?
Right. Mhm.
But yeah, so getting into the movie, sort of a deep dive. This film cuts up into 3 or 4 easy parts, right? Act one is characters are at their low point. Marty is a struggling musician trying to get some time on the stage. George is a bullied and defeatist father. Until Marty shows up at the mall to see Doc's invention, the Libyans show up and kill him. Marty hops into the DeLorean and takes off and goes to the past 30 years before, 1955. But the DeLorean is wrecked. When you look at the beginning of this movie, what sticks out to you? What are your favorite parts or least favorite
Well,
parts?
I just love I mean, I love the setup. So, like, the very beginning, like, the first 10 minutes, if you look at it, they lay out the entire plot for the movie in the first 10 minutes, and it's just, like, so clean and so well done, you know? Like, he walks into Doc's, uh, lab or whatever, and there's just clocks all over the place, and none of them really have the right time, and he's surrounded by all of these crazy inventions, and none of them quite work correctly, and they, like, give all the backstory for the plutonium and everything in the newspapers and on the wall and stuff,
Yeah,
and then he goes to rock out, and he gets shot backward, and then he gets a phone call telling him that he's actually back in time,
yeah. His
and he's
late.
late.
Yeah,
It's
it's
so
really,
good.
really hitting you over the head with the theme of the story, time.
Yeah.
It's the first thing you hear is clocks. The first thing you see is all those clocks. Kind of brings you back to Hook when, Jack is about to smash them up. And like, who keeps plutonium under their bed? Right? That was kind of one thing that struck out to me. Like, I've heard of guns under the pillow. I've never heard of plutonium under the bed, right? Kind of bizarre.
Doc is a special character.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love the homage to the 80s though. It's like mall culture, right? Burger King, Huey Lewis is blasting on the radio.
Yeah.
So one thing that I wondered as I rewatched this is it's kind of like before the age where we really used area codes for phone numbers.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah,
Oh,
I don't know, I feel like, but I mean, regardless, I wonder how many people ever called Jennifer's number.
yeah. Oh, right, 'cause she gives it to him on the clock tower thing.
Yeah.
That's funny. But it's a 555. That's always the pretend number, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Going into the second part, did you have like any takeaways from the first part of the story?
Any takeaways?
I mean,
I mean,
like the film sets up for change, right? What do you think is the setup of what are they trying to like, what's the prop of the story?
the prop?
or I guess the
Mhm.
main thrust of the first act.
I mean, the
You know?
theme that stood out to me watching it this time was just, this urge that a lot of us have to go back in time and change our situation now. Like, you look at your family or whoever's around you, and they're all kind of miserable, and they're not living up to their potential, and you're like, "If I could just go back in time and I could fix this," you know? And I think that's, like, a really relatable urge, you know?
Absolutely. And I
And
think,
that's the catalyst for the whole story.
yeah, and you really see three misfits, right? You got the mad scientist, you got sort of the scared intellectual, and you got the artist that's trying to get on stage. And I think that true to form in a lot of misfit situations is you get a lot of intergenerational things, right? Like Doc and Marty are, you can tell they're very good friends. They're
Mhm,
also 30 years apart,
mhm.
right? And that's kind of bizarre, but it definitely hints that they're others, right? And it's even
Yeah.
when Marty's on stage, Jennifer's watching, and he's trying to get into the show in high school. You get those squares, right, that are watching. It kind of foreshadows the 50s environment he'd enter later, where,
Mhm.
you got those, like how they'd respond to the Johnny Be Good scene later. You got these people that grew up then that aren't liking it. One of them is actually Huey Lewis, if
In the
you
in
knew that.
the crowd?
Yeah, the guy that tells him, "You're just too loud," with the
Oh,
microphone is actually Huey Lewis.
really? I didn't know that. That's
Yeah. And it's funny because he wrote a song, "Hip to Be Square," and
yeah.
was one of the biggest squares in the movie, right?
Mhm.
So, yeah, like, it keeps going though, after he gets back into 55, Marty finds his bullied father and meets Biff and follows George back to see him creeping on his mom, which is like, it's very much a weird moment. He
Mhm.
wakes up with his mom creeping on him a la Oedipus Rex,
Mhm.
and his
Yeah, it
DeLorean
gets
is
pretty weird. It gets pretty bizarre for sure.
gets bizarre when a mom is talking about your underwear in sort of a romantic fashion, right? And he's stuck there now because the DeLorean is wrecked, and it's not until Doc has literally a bolt of lightning idea to get him out of his situation in the 50s in general. But Marty can't help but mess things up with his personality, and he steps in and interferes with George and Lorraine. So him and Doc have to decide to get George to ask out Lorraine somehow in a rhythmic ceremonial ritual. One of my
Mhm.
favorite uh awkward antisocial ways to describe a dance, right? This is a guy that's probably he's very quite clearly the highest getting the highest grade in science, but he can't even tell you what a dance is.
He's an
So,
outsider. Yep.
yeah, so they got to get them to get their first kiss. And unfortunately, along the way, Lorraine starts to like Marty and sort of come on to Marty. Marty has to try and show George how to impress her by standing up for her, right? Biff cuts in, and George really has to stand up for himself and get his girl the way that she wants and tells him that he wants. In this scene, when you're meeting people and you're seeing all these characters, the mom when she's sort of at a high point, the father when he's at a low point. What are your kind of favorite parts from when they get back to the 50s?
Hmm. My favorite parts. I mean, the dance was really fun. I really liked everything, especially with Crispin Glover, honestly, because his character is just like so out there. I mean, he's an artist too, and like Marty gets to discover that about him because he didn't know that about his dad and in the present time.
Yeah, that's
And so all of their interactions are just like, there's so much there. I mean, can you imagine being able to talk to your father when he was a kid and him not knowing who you were, There's just it's not like they're really heavy um performances, but there is a lot there, but it's also just really fun.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, take it if you kind of walk through Marty's experiences upon first meeting his father when he was younger. You see Marty not really impressed with his dad getting bullied, right? He looks like a pushover.
Mhm.
And eventually, as he gets to know him, it's probably my favorite scene of this part when they're in the cafeteria and George is talking about how, he's afraid of rejection and, no one can, he's questioning whether Marty can understand the fear of failure and rejection. And I think at that point, Marty goes from judging him to really thinking that he understands him and he can relate to him. And there's this
Mhm.
kind of deja vu moment, right?
Mhm.
It's like, no, I know what you're talking about. And it's kind of recalls the conversation he has with Jennifer where he's not going to send out his demo tape,
Mhm.
right? And when he kind of gets the goosebumps when George starts talking about something else, it is kind of, you see Marty starting to have a different opinion of his dad, but there's a lot of Easter eggs in this, if you noticed.
Yeah.
Ronald Reagan movies in the
Mhm.
50s, not just Ronald Reagan references, and I love that Doc makes fun of him, but there's also a lot of 90s villains in this,
What do
right?
you mean?
Billy
Oh,
Zane,
right, you said that. Yeah,
even
Billy.
Brendan Fraser.
Really?
He's one of the bad guys, and
Oh, he's in, like, Biff's crew?
yeah, he's definitely I think he's one of the guys holding down Marty at the end,
Okay.
right? But, in this part, you start to see, it's interesting because you start to see Marty grow up too, and
Mhm.
he's passing on a lot of the wisdom and friendship that Doc taught him to his
Mhm.
dad. And the phrase that gets passed around in this movie is, if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything. And it's
Mhm.
ironic that you never hear Doc tell that to Marty. You hear Marty tell Jennifer that Doc told him that.
Mhm.
But it's kind of funny when he uses that adage onto his new friend, which is his old father, right? And then, like, I think my favorite part of the whole like introduction to the past is the nerd fail of George, right? So
The what?
it's I call it the nerd fail. It's
Nerd
like,
fail?
you're my density, I mean
Oh, yeah.
destiny.
Yeah, it's great.
It's a face palm moment, but um,
But it's so charming. Yeah, I don't
you
know,
think you
everything you're just
think
saying is just making me think about how, like, having like, confidence is a really central theme to the story in general, you know?
yes,
And that you can kind of, like, track, like, not having confidence, you can sort of inherit that from your parents, and so if you can go back in time and, like, teach your parents to have confidence, like, then maybe you can have confidence. Yeah,
absolutely. And how maybe friends like get you over the top, but I
sure.
the last section of this film shows everyone confronting their demons and overcoming them. You have Marty racing on stage and trying to be the rock star he always wanted to be. Doc
Mhm,
trying to finally finish some invention. Okay, and George trying to stand up for his girl, for his lady. Um,
and
it's a
for
lot of,
himself, yeah.
sorry.
And stand up for himself, not, like, just let himself be bullied.
Yeah, there's a lot of him trying to be the person he wants to be, but also be in a relationship he wants to be. Um, you know, I don't know about you, but I love how Marty ignores Doc's warning not to write him a letter, and he still does.
Mhm.
Wouldn't you do that for a friend?
Yeah, I mean, how do you not? It'd be hard to not blurt it out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And you had this sort of
course.
Oedipal Rex theme circle back, like and complete the circle when she leans in for the kiss on her own son,
Mhm.
right?
And yeah, and she says it's like kissing my brother.
Yeah. It's like,
She's a
yeah,
really cool I like that character how, she actually started out really confident, or she was very forward, which is, like, really uncommon for girls at that time as far as I understand history. Um, but and then as she got older, she just got beaten down by life and was, like, always discouraging people from, like, going after their dreams or calling boys or putting themselves out there or whatever, you know?
yeah, absolutely. It was truly exciting to see not just a woman, but you know, she's the opposite of George,
Yeah.
right? And kind of like how Marty starts to see a different father, I think Lorraine starts to see a different man in front of her. And, kind of like it's funny because Marty and George really tried to perpetrate a fraud on Lorraine, right? It was going to be like a fake thing. Marty was going to pretend to sort of be an indecent man to Lorraine so that George could have his moment of bravery. But in fact, Biff cut in and was actually harassing her. And we see George shocked and afraid when he finds a man that is not Marty and a lot bigger and a lot scarier.
Hmm.
And he still meets the occasion and fights back, right? That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. He was
Was
struck
your
by lightning.
Yeah, that's a
Courage.
great pun, right?
Yeah.
I think my favorite part of this is when he says, "I figured what the hell," right? What was your favorite part of this whole act?
Of the third act or of act two?
You have three in Act Three. You
Center.
have three people overcoming their challenges, right? Marty can't get on stage. George can't stick up for himself or someone else. Doc Brown can never get something done. What who's your favorite character? Is there a character that you relate to or more? Is there a story that which of the three is most compelling to you? Is there one that you relate to more than the other?
Hmm. I mean, I find things in all of them that I relate to, I think, and they have really common issues, which is that they have these big dreams that they want to go after, but they lack confidence and they're kind of nerdy and they stumble over their feet and they, hold themselves back in all these different ways. So I think I can relate to that in all of them. But I think of the three, I relate to Marty the most, and maybe that's just because he's the central character, so we know him the best. But um, yeah, just sort of like the kid in all of us that kind of wishes they could fix things for their parents or like, change the course of history or
Yeah,
I
it's
think that's really relatable.
from a movie that this borrowing from a movie that this film is often compared to in It's a Wonderful Life. There's a line in that movie, and the two are compared because they're both about a guy going back in time and seeing how things would have been different. But in that movie, George Bailey's father tells him that he was born older, right? A person with wisdom beyond their years. And I feel like Marty in this movie is the same way, right?
Mhm.
He's best friends with the guy 30 years his senior. You can tell that they both kind of help each other. Doc even says that at the end, right before Marty goes back to the future, and he's helping George. He's like a good coach, right? Like a good brother, you
Mhm.
know. I think that I got some weird science in me, or some weird, mad scientists in me.
Mhm.
But everyone, they all have redemption, right?
Yeah.
They all have cool reasons why you should believe in them, right? And I think my main takeaway from this film, what's interesting is I think a great movie appeals to a lot of people at different ages, different backgrounds. But part and parcel of that is that as you change, as you get older, as you move around, as you meet different kinds of people, I feel like you start to look at the material, the film differently, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but how I would have described this movie when I was like 10 versus right now would be totally different.
Yeah, I think that's why it's lasted. I mean, it had like I said, it has so much commercial appeal. I mean, it's exciting. You get to go travel through time, things explode, people get shot, like
Yeah.
people are rocking out. There's all kinds of exciting shit.
People get
But then
punched a
there's
lot.
lots of punching, yeah.
Yeah.
Skateboard tricks.
Yeah.
But then
Manure.
there's all this other stuff under the surface. Yeah, but that's why great movies are supposed to do. That's what they should be
Right.
doing. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of like Hollywood blockbuster stuff. There's action, there's conflict. I like how George goes from being a bullied person to someone that cannot stop decking people, right? And like he's getting beat up for 90% of the movie, and then the last 10 minutes he's just like punching people, pushing people over. It's like, all right, man, a little bit of an overcorrection, right? But
Gotta start
when,
somewhere.
yeah, of course. And when you look beyond the fluff and the flair and the drama, there's really a triangle of friendship, right? And you really see that in the way they bandy about and pass the term on. If you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything, which is one friend trying to inspire another friend to reach their potential and go chase their dreams. And, when at the end you see them all happy, and Marty's got his truck, he's got his girlfriend, George has got his wife, his book. Doc Brown is actually a successful mad scientist. He's not just a mad scientist, right? But you see that they're really not dependent, but they're just among a gang of misfits, right?
Mhm.
And they're all sort of helping each other go, right? It's not just how they help each other get over problems, but they stick around. And that's why Doc shows up at the end, right? We got another adventure. That's what friends do. It's sort of like Three Musketeers, right?
Sure. Yeah.
How
Yeah.
would you? Go
It's
ahead.
cool. Oh, sorry. What were you gonna say?
How would you describe this movie as someone never seen it?
I mean, I would call it I mean, it's really kind of a family drama in a way, but it's sort of like couched in this like super 80s style sci-fi buddy comedy thing almost, because
Like that.
like we've been talking about, there's all these like deep family themes that run throughout it, and themes of like the inner hero's journey and all that. But yeah, how would I describe it? I don't know. I'm not good at describing things quickly. I would
That's all
probably
right.
say something like that, and the person would be like, "Oh, yeah, cool."
When you're going around time that much, there's so many stories, and they're whipping all back and forth. It's easy to follow the loud noises, the bright lights, especially when Doc's jumping off of buildings and landing, miraculously. But I think the reason why people come back is not so much because the wonder of going back and forth in time, but the real story about a kid trying to save his family, right, and help his friends. And then you see that, yeah, they're all getting where they want to go, but they're really only doing it because of each other,
Mhm.
right? And the kind of misfit culture, the sort of misfit heroes, is something that we all love, right?
Yeah, love an underdog.
Absolutely. Well,
Mhm.
thanks. Hope you all enjoyed the talk as much as we did. This has been Last Row
Yeah.
Tickets by Gadfly City. I hope you come back next week. We will. Take care now.
Bye.
Bye.